Hi everyone, welcome to Woodblock Wednesday, where every Wednesday we get together and discuss Japanese prints, paintings, and history. I'm Elias Martin of Collecting Japanese Prints. I want to welcome all of you here on Facebook Live, as well as our viewers who catch us on YouTube. This video, if you're new, is done on Facebook Live, and all our past Woodblock Wednesday videos are all uploaded onto YouTube, where you could catch any of those episodes at your convenience. So please, I encourage you. We have over 100 episodes on a variety of topics on prints and paintings that I think you might like. Today's Woodblock Wednesday is dedicated to the work of Kawase Hasui. And in particular, there are two prints that I have to show all of you, but they're really actually one design. And these two prints really give us a sense of the woodblock printmaking process and what is possible when you're making prints and make changes to the color blocks. And of course, for those of you who are new to collecting or to Japanese woodblock prints, just give you a quick introduction. Kawase Hasui was one of the premier woodblock print artists of the Shin Hanga tradition, meaning he was the artist who designed woodblock prints, but he worked for a publisher, and his publisher was Watanabe. And so basically Watanabe hired Hasui to create some designs of Japan, and Watanabe would then go ahead and publish the prints. He hired the woodblock carvers and printers and would produce the prints. And so certainly it was a commercial enterprise, but Hasui was really accomplished at doing these prints and designed hundreds of prints, particularly for Watanabe. So without further ado, let's look at the table and see what I have. So I'm going to pan out a little bit so you can see there are two Oban size prints, and they depict the great Buddha of Kamakura. These two prints were done in 1930, and again, they were done by Kawase Hasui. And for those who are not familiar with Hasui, Hasui was born in 1883 and passed away in 1957. And he was really prolific, produced some iconic designs of the Shin Hanga movement. Chances are you've seen a Hasui design somewhere, either on a calendar, on a postcard, or a greeting card. They're all over the place. And if you go to Japan, you definitely encounter them as well. You see them sort of in posters for different things. And so these two prints depict the same design. But it's fascinating because with woodblock prints, you can change the color scheme and make colors more intense, lighter, darker, and it does certainly affect the overall feel of a design. And so these two prints are going to be featured in my upcoming exhibition. Hopefully will be up in a couple weeks. And the exhibition is centered on figures in Japanese art. So these two prints sort of relate to an artist working with the human form. And we have here a group of people. It looks like three women, or a little girl and a mother and a grandmother. And this design depicts the great Buddha, again, of Kamakura. For those of you who've been there, you know how beautiful this is. And for those of you who haven't yet gone to Japan, Kamakura is a city. It's a small city outside of Tokyo, about an hour-ish away. You could take a train and get there really easily. And of course, Kamakura is known for a lot of things, but this is probably their number one tourist site, the Great Buddha. And for those of you who are not aware of this beautiful historical site, it actually is interesting because there used to be a temple that was built around the Buddha, and it was made out of wood, and it basically came down in a fire. And they left the Buddha uncovered. And actually, as far as I know, it's the only uncovered Buddha in Japan, and it's really striking. You go to these temples and in Japan, and there's these wonderful wooden structures that house a giant Buddha, and certainly the structure itself adds to the feeling of the experience. But in this case, there's something really striking and very interesting about having a giant sized Buddha out in the open air and having, in some ways, the temple structure is nature itself. It's a wonderful metaphor for Buddhism and sort of the idea of Buddha nature being everywhere, as well as things being ephemera or things being transitory and disappearing with time. And so the course the structure is gone, and so what we have here is just the bronze Buddha. And so Hasui, I think, did a really wonderful job at depicting this subject. Of course, the Buddha is center stage in the composition, but he adds the figures to give you a sense of scale as how, I mean, it's a giant size sculpture. And there's a tree right behind the Buddha that also, gives you a sense of scale. But in this particular case, there are two impressions that are known, and these two really early printings, you could see here. There's a Watanabe seal on the right side, as there is here on this print, and these two Buddhas, depict the scene at a different time. At least that's how I read the print. I've been to Kamakura. I've seen the Buddha, and so as the sun moves across the sky, of course, in different times of the seasons. If you go in the fall or in the winter, it's different. But this is in the spring summer, and you see the light is illuminating the entire design, and the sun is in a position to illuminate the entire structure of the Buddha. And so in Hasui's print, and I'll zoom in and I could show you the print a bit more. It's actually quite lifelike. He got the color right, or I should say that Watanabe's printers really got the color right. And this is what the Buddha looks like in bright white, a bright light of day. And you can see there are shadows that are cast at the bottom from trees that are nearby. And, so it's very lifelike. And there's a little structure here with some people. It's probably, I'm trying to remember if this structure's there now. I don't think it's right there. I have to think about it, but it's probably a restroom and a place where you can go in. But just generally speaking, it's just a striking design. The impression's really early. You could see the wood grain in the sky from the blocks, which is a wonderful effect that the printers can produce on prints. And so in this case, for our conversation today, it's not just that we have a wonderful Hasui design, but we have two impressions that were done deliberately in a very different way. These were choices that were calculated by the publisher and the printer to create a different print in many ways based on a different time of day. And so you could see, first of all, the sky, this bright blue sky, is a bit more tame. And it suggests a later time of day. The clouds are not as striking. It's basically very lifelike. It's what you would expect when the light is sort of, the sun is not in the position to illuminate the entire scene. Here, the color choices on the tree and the tree trunk, much brighter. And of course, here they're much more subdued. And in the background of the trees, of course, they're more muted. And here, of course, you see they're much brighter. But the most striking aspect of the composition is the darker color that was used to represent the outer shell, the structure, the sculpture, you could see there it's much darker. And quite frankly, at a later time of day, this is what it looks like. So it's really, I think, interesting to see, excuse me, the choices that were made to create this impression, which has a very different feel to it. I think both are really striking, and I like them both for different reasons. But put side by side, I think they create a really wonderful conversation in terms of how the print was made, and of course how these subtle effects can really, in my opinion, radically change the design. This print, though, it's the same as this, and when you look at it, it's a different vibe. It hits differently. So, I just love that when you're dealing with woodblock prints because they're made by hand. Each print is printed by hand. And people forget that because these Shin Hanga prints are printed with such precision. And so you look at it, and in our contemporary world where everything is made by a machine, you think, oh, it's a woodblock print, and you don't really think about all of the steps that go into these prints and how carefully they've been produced. And so, I mean, little details like this slight reddish bokashi that's in the sky here is really wonderful addition. And of course, that's added by hand. And in this print, we don't have the striking pink as it's still kind of there, but not really. And what we have here more is a play of shadows. And you could see here the Beren work, this sort of rough quality on the surface of the bricks here, and that's really a wonderful play that the printer produces when he is rubbing the Beren, the printing device, the circular device onto the print and getting this kind of grayish circular texture. And that's not really there on this impression. But it works here because it really gives you a sense of, it's like shadow and how the light plays with the atmosphere as the shadow moves towards these figures in the inner portion of the design. So, all right, I've said a lot. I'm just going to shut up for a moment, and I want you to just sort of enjoy both prints. So I'm going to just pan in and show you details. Back up a little bit. Again, they're oban in size, so you get a sense of two prints laying there side by side. I'm going to zoom in on this one now. One of the really successful aspects of this design is that everything that the artist includes is sort of it works in concert to bring the impact of these giant-sized bronze sculpture of the Buddha. And you could see these little plaques that are there. Of course, the people, the incense burner, these two birds that are almost strategically placed right there. They all work in concert to give you a sense of scale. Of course, the tree that's there, the clouds that almost bring the eye up towards the design. Yeah, they all of these things really help to give you a sense of this structure. And I have to point out that a lot of these prints, when they were produced, were not necessarily produced for the Japanese. The publisher, Watanabe, was very active in selling these to tourists and then sending them off to the United States and in Europe. And so a lot of these prints, and I would argue the majority of these prints, ended up in the hands of people who either been there or actually wanted to get there and are not native to Japan. And so, of course, these designs, Hasui was very much aware of this fact, and so he produced these designs that are, in some ways, very strongly influenced by tourist attractions and also an aspect of showcasing the old traditions of Japan. And this is rendered so well that it's almost as if, it's a photograph and that, you've been there and you shot these. And again, I want to point out how beautifully printed this is. There's this wood grain. I hope you're able to see it. I'm using my iPhone here. I have a light overhead, but there's this wonderful, delicate wood grain that comes across the composition, including the surface of the Buddha here. Very soft, atmospheric, but beautiful. Now, I want to point out that for those of you who are new and are just learning about Hasui, there's a wonderful book on Hasui. This is the Hasui Catalog Raisonné. It's the Hasui's completed works, and so there's some missing prints, but by and large, this is the Bible for Hasui. And it comes in, this is one book of two that come in this cloth-bound box. And I highly recommend the catalog. There's two versions of this catalog, and they're both fine. And so, this book is available. I have it for sale in my bookstore if you're interested. Just shoot me a direct message about it. But I wanted to include this because this book showcases all of Hasui's prints in color, and some of them are full page, others are not. But at the end of the day, if you're interested in Hasui, it's wonderful to have a book that gives you a sense of his body of work so that you're able to decide which designs you want, and so that you could spend your hard-earned money on things that you really, really want. Oftentimes, as a dealer, I get people who are very enthusiastic about something and they buy it, but then they learn, oh, there are other things that they may like more. And then they end up deciding to sell the thing they were so excited about, a year or two later. And it's one of my missions to sort of educate the public and show them what's available so that they can make informed decisions when purchasing a print. And so these two prints are so fantastic. You might like this one or you might like this one, but it's good to know that both states exist and they can be found. And of course, these two prints will be in my update coming up in a couple of weeks. So if you want to learn more about the exhibition or want to be alerted to when it's up, go to my website and sign up for our email, and we will contact you when the site is up with the new exhibition. So one last time, I'll zoom in so you can see the prints. Pan out so you could see them. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining me on this Woodblock Wednesday. It's been a pleasure to show you these wonderful prints. And if you're interested in learning more about these prints, as well as all of the other works that we'll have in the exhibition coming up, please join our email. You'll get a notice from us when the exhibition goes live. And of course, feel free to check out our site now. We have plenty of things on there. We have over 100 videos featuring prints and paintings of all kinds. So there's a lot there. So I encourage you to check us out, collectingjapaneseprints.com. Thank you again. I look forward to seeing you next week with a next installment of our Woodblock Wednesday. Until then, thank you.